You know what makes me mad, Andrew?
What is that, Steven?
Well, at least this week, because there's stuff that always makes me mad. Seeing that report about Rick Moranis getting hit by that dude in New York, do you see that?
I did see that.
Yeah, that makes me mad.
I woke up yesterday and people were talking about it. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened to Rick Moranis?
First of all, what is Rick Moranis doing in New York? Does he live there? Because I don't see him living. I don't see him living in New York.
He apparently lives on the Upper West Side, per an article I was reading, and I guess he's been living there for the last forever. I guess
for the last forever, yeah.
And the last forever. But what's crazy is that stuff like this was happening a few years ago, where it was like this I don't know, social media prank where people would just punch people randomly in public and someone would record it, and like that was a thing for a little while there. And I thought it had gone away, but apparently...
Well, I didn't read the article, so this wasn't just a malicious attack on a celebrity?
No, it was just random.
Just random.
From what I've seen.
Wow.
Just a random, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, from what I understand as of the recording.
I did see the video clip, and it looked like it was a younger kid. He probably doesn't know who Rick Moranis is anyway, so...
What is interesting is I don't think a lot of people know who Rick Moranis is.
Do we really? Does anybody really know who Rick Moranis is?
I'm just saying. I mean,
other than Rick Moranis,
he hasn't done anything in Hollywood for over 20 years. Yeah. So unless someone has introduced you to like Spaceballs, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids,
Little Giants,
or Little Shop of Horrors, which I watched for the first time this past week.
I mean, most people have seen Ghostbusters.
And Ghostbusters Part 2, or Ghostbusters 2, then yeah, if you haven't seen any of those, cultural touchstone films of the last 30 years,
jeez,
or, actually 35 years, now that time has moved on, perhaps you don't know who he is, but still.
We're gonna have to do an episode on Little Giants, now that I think...
Yeah, sure.
Nah, I'm just kidding, we don't have to, but...
I'm down for it.
Okay, all right, fine. Then we'll have to one day.
It'll be great just to, one, to revisit that movie, and two, to be like, what are all of these actors doing now?
Yeah, I think it was maybe about 6 months ago. I saw this. I saw Little Giants on like one of them free streaming services like Tubi or Crackle or and it was on there, and I was like, I have to watch this. I have to. Of course, there was ads and it was annoying, but
those are the worst, and they come at the worst possible time.
Yeah,
like sometime in the middle of scenes.
Oh, it's terrible.
There will be an ad.
Yeah, it's like it's supposed to be. It's like when you're watching actual TV, and like you're like they of course had to choose that time.
I think it's worse on TV because sometimes the movies are edited down.
Yeah,
and you don't get to see the full movie.
Because I just watched Pride and Glory, and it was on Tubi, and goddamn, if they didn't put a fucking ad every, 20 minutes.
What I've come to find is that if you have, did you have a Tubi account? Did you set one up, or did you just...
No, I just go in there.
I think if you have an account, which is free for anyone at home, same thing with Crackle, same thing with Pluto TV, all these ad-supported, free movie apps that you can watch stuff. It's all legal. It's all free. We're not breaking any laws here. But I think if you get, if you sign up for, a free account with them, there's less ads, but still, the ads are still annoying. Yeah. And the worst part is they're usually the same ad over and over and over again, and it's just awful. But it's coincident that you talk about kind of, streaming and just, ads and things being pumped into your brain.
The technology, yeah.
And technology and stuff, because the movie we're talking about here on the newest episode of the Cinema Discovery Project is a film by David Cronenberg, one of Stephen and I's
my
personal
favorite
favorites.
filmmaker, maybe.
Yeah, he's up there for me. And this is his film eXistenZ.
There's an intimacy involved in playing eXistenZ that is beyond description. They just pop your spine with a little hydro gun. Break out of your cage, Michael.
I haven't crippled anyone yet. Step into my office.
Now I'm warning you. It's going to be a wild ride.
The new millennium
This is amazing.
will bring a new experience
You're the power source. We'll see how natural it feels.
where the playing field is a parallel
The
universe.
game's a lot more fun when it starts feeling realer than real.
which came out in 1999. And every time I think about eXistenZ, I always like I have to say it in like a cool, serious voice.
I think
eXistenZ.
I hear the name eXistenZ, and it for some reason makes me think of the penis enlargement pills extends.
Oh, the eXistenZ commercial.
You remember the eXistenZ commercials? And I think the font was very similar too to the movie of
You know what's crazy? A friend of mine and I used to have that running joke where, because we would always go out movie shopping, and we would always come across like a used DVD version of eXistenZ, and if you look at it quickly, it looks like it says Extends.
Yes.
If you don't add that little,
eggs,
that little part in it,
Yeah.
and yeah, it does sound like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one came out first, that medication or the movie. My guess is the movie came out first.
I think the movie came out first, but either way, I mean, this movie has so much sexual stuff all over it anyway, so it would make sense. It would make sense. So
yeah, there's a lot of sexual
tones. That's a David Cronenberg thing. I mean,
that's a Cronenberg thing, straight up.
He delves into themes of sex and violence and how that all plays a part together in a lot of his movies. I would say not as much in his later work. His latest work hasn't been as sexual, but then again, there was the scene with Viggo Mortensen in Eastern Promises where he's like completely naked.
Well, then there's also Dangerous Method, where they're literally having sex in that movie.
Well, you're right. I'm completely wrong. Honestly, it's just I guess it's not infused with his kind of body horror elements that he used.
Yeah, it was more suggestive, and he was kind of hiding it more, and it was more of an underlying theme. Whereas some of his later movies, he just has it straight.
Just goes straight into it.
Like even in Cosmopolis, there's a sex scene in a limo.
Yeah. Well, also I was gonna say History of Violence. He kind of almost rapes his wife on a
the Maria
staircase.
Bello scene on the stairs. Yeah, very uncomfortable to watch. And there's another scene earlier on in the film that is one of the more graphic sexual scenes in a movie.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking graphic as in rape or anything like that. It's very explicit.
Yeah.
And between Viggo Mortensen and Maria Bello. And yeah, so he's never shied away from sexual elements.
No.
And he doesn't shy away from sexual elements in eXistenZ. But for those of you who've never seen eXistenZ before, it's an overlooked film, I think, from him.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, I mean, it's a movie that came out in a year where a lot of great movies came out.
1999 is notorious for being a great year for film. You had movies like The Matrix, Fight Club. American Beauty. I know it's not one of Steven's favorites.
Mr. Dan Skip Allen, a friend of ours, actually sent me a book that's just about this year of movies.
Just about 1999?
I haven't read it yet, but it goes through the whole year of how this is one of the great years of movies.
Oh,
and it's just endless great movies. I mean, I don't like American Beauty, but it did win Best Picture, and people like that movie,
right.
And
10 Things I Hate About You,
yeah.
which is a star-studded cast with the late, great Heath Ledger. Eyes Wide Shut, which is Stanley Kubrick's last film. The Sixth Sense, which we've done an episode on before. You had Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, which still holds up as such a fun action movie. Girl Interrupted, Office Space, Magnolia, The Virgin Suicides. The list goes on and on. You even throw in a Bond movie, The World Is Not Enough. Not the best Bond movie, but it's a Bond movie. Speaking of which, the newest one just got pushed.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for bringing
April
up something
next year.
bad.
Yeah,
back to David Cronenberg.
I had to wedge that in there. And yeah, so 99 was a notoriously great year for film, and this film just kind of gets buried in all of those movies.
It also kind of directly gets connected to The Matrix, being that they're both movies about technology and our relationship with technology, and how that has kind of created almost like an apocalyptic world, or in this case with eXistenZ, on the verge of it, or people think that we're on the verge of it because of the technology.
Yeah, it's also kind of, there is a sense of plugging in to the virtual world, literally, that we'll get into when we get into the plot of the movie. And, the idea of what is real and what's not real, and can you tell the difference between the two?
Yeah.
Those things are kind of touched upon in both The Matrix and in eXistenZ. I would say in eXistenZ, it's done much less philosophical than The Matrix. The Matrix tends to really layer its film heavily with a lot of stuff, whereas eXistenZ, I think, is more blunt and more literal. But we'll get into all that when we get into the plot. But this film stars some people you may know: Jennifer Jason Leigh, Jude Law are the two co-leads. Jennifer Jason Leigh plays a character called Allegra Geller, and Jude Law is Ted Pikel, is his name.
Terrible name. No, it's good.
Yeah, which is that's a terrible
Pikel.
There's some weird names in this movie in general, but Jennifer Jason Leigh is like this. She's this like computer.
She's a world-renowned game designer.
Video game designer.
Yeah.
Like computer game designer, and basically she's on the run this whole movie with Jude Law because people want to kill her, because people there's factions and groups.
Yeah, there's a
pro her, pro not her, pro virtual.
I was gonna say the name of the group is the
reality.
The Realists is the name of the group.
The Realists.
And at the beginning she's basically testing her new game called eXistenZ. And
I also like how eXistenZ is a play on the word existence.
Yeah.
Because it's like, reality and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you also get some other actors pop in here. Ian Holm, the late Ian Holm, pops in here. Willem Dafoe, which I completely forgot was in the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's been a few years since I've seen it. I've only seen this movie twice, and this is my second time watching it. And I completely forgot about large portions of the movie.
Yeah.
Completely forgot about it. But it was cool to see him show up. And Christopher Eccleston is in the movie for a little bit. And this was post Shallow Grave, but pre when he would be the first Doctor Who.
Yeah.
He would be, I think he's the 9th Doctor. When they had the whole revival of Doctor Who in the early 2000s, he was the first one to start off the new chain of doctors that we have now. And it was really fun to see him also doing an American accent that I'm not used to seeing.
Well, I was going to say, I in the special features for the Blu-ray I have, the only Blu-ray really you can get that's good is this one I have, which is from Black Label. And in the special features, there's an interview with him, and he talks about how his accent is terrible. And
it really, you know what it feels like? It feels very forced.
Well,
he's really trying.
Yeah, he said he only had like a couple days to like get ready because he like got casted in, and within a couple of days he was already having to do the scene, and he didn't have time to work on it. So it just he says he justifies it because in the game world, things you don't know what's real and what's not. So being that it's very vague accent, it like makes it okay,
Right. That's a good way to kind of make up for that. That does make a lot of sense. Once you get into the plot of the movie, it kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So speaking of the plot of the movie, I guess let's dive right in. So, in this kind of, it's not quite a futuristic world, but almost like a dystopian world, I guess, because, we don't have the technology that they have, although it's getting close. It's getting real close in terms of the way in which video games have taken over our lives. But it's interesting, I guess we'll get into it a little bit right now, is just that how prophetic this movie is when it came to how much video games and technology would take over people's lives.
Yeah.
And how it was really prophesizing, I would say, online gaming.
Yeah.
The ability to play online against people all over the world and just get into that world of video games and kind of get stuck in that world.
Well, the thing is video gaming has been around even for a while before that.
Right.
It just wasn't as, because of the internet,
Yeah.
it blowing the internet blowing up, I think we start to notice things like that a lot more easily, and I think Cronenberg saw an opportunity to once again delve into the themes of our relationship with technology, because he Videodrome, he does that.
Yeah, a lot of Videodrome vibes from this movie.
Yeah,
not quite as graphic.
No,
I would say
no, but
it was interesting how he was kind of like at the forefront of like warning people about the dangers of technology and stuff like that, because when this film came out in 1999, the video game world was much different than it is today.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not a huge gamer or anything like that, but I've been playing video games, since I was a little kid, since I was like, 2, 3, 4 years old on the original, Nintendo Entertainment System from the, the mid 80s to the, late 80s, and, straight up through the 90s, Super NES, Sega Genesis, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 2, onward and onward. But it's just like as each generation has gone along, things have advanced more and more. And it really wasn't until like the late 90s, 2000s era that we started getting like online gaming and internet gaming and stuff like that. And back then it was just so, rudimentary compared to what we have today. You had to buy like adapters for the consoles and stuff, and the internet back then was terrible.
Yeah.
So it was slow and laggy, and the games were problematic when it came to that. But nowadays it's like it's instant. You can turn on any gaming console or computer, and you're instantly connected to the world. You can start gaming right away. And it's kind of interesting how this was how the way in which the eXistenZ world and the way in which they plug in is so instant. But we'll get into it. Let's get into the plot right away. The first scene of the movie takes place at like this.
It's
like
a rundown
seminar?
church.
Like a church. It's like an underground like seminar in like a church basement. That's what it looks like to me. And I was like, and watching it, I'm like, I guess they're not big enough to have a convention center hall somewhere or anything like that.
I think also that
but it's also like really private and kind of like almost like a focus group type of thing, like a preview group.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what it is, and I think also that they're trying to keep it on the down low.
Yeah,
so they're
very much on the down low.
So they're doing it in a place where they think they can keep themselves from being noticed. So they bring in all these people that are gonna try this game for the first time. And Jude Law, who is playing he's supposed to be there for marketing purposes, but apparently he's also supposed to be there for protection, and he doesn't know it.
Yeah, he's the doorman.
Yeah.
He's the one, if you've ever been to an event, he's like checking your tickets, patting you down, waving the metal wand around so you're not bringing anything you're not supposed to. Specifically in this instance, they specifically mention weapons, so you already know that the world that this video gaming world can be very violent, and I mean it's going to become very violent very quickly. But you already get the sense that if people are bringing weapons to these type of events, that things could potentially go down already. And so Christopher Eccleston is hosting it, so he's giving this whole big spiel about what eXistenZ is and all this kind of stuff, and he introduces Jennifer Jason Leigh's character as this game design genius. She's designed all these successful big time games, and everybody knows her. She's a big time celebrity, but she's also really like quiet and not very social, and like doesn't really like talking in front of big crowds and whatnot. And they couldn't have picked a better actress than Jason Leigh to portray that, because the one thing I've always noticed with Jennifer Jason Leigh is that when she acts and when she talks and recites her lines, she never opens her mouth too much. So she's always like reserved in that respect, and that's going all the way back to Fast Times at Ridgemont High. That's kind of the way I've always seen her act, and it was perfect for this type of character. So she goes up there and she says that they're gonna pick isn't it 12 or 13 people to basically test out her new game for the first time. And Christopher Eccleston says that he starts picking people, and It just
very
like
very
people.
Price is Right, you know.
Yeah, like The Price is Right. Like, come on down.
Yeah,
You're the next contestant on The Price is Right. Oh man.
So it's an eclectic group. They all come up and sit down, and so you get a glimpse at this system, and it's very much like it just looks like a piece of meat.
Yeah, it's sitting on everyone's laps, and it's this fleshy game system. It looks like the size of like a video game console. Almost like for those of you out there who rolled like a Nintendo 64, like it looks like it has that dimension, like a square box dimension, and it sits on your lap, but it's fleshy and you touch it. And you gotta some props to Cronenberg and the sound design people, because it sounds very, what's the word I'm looking for? Uncomfortable, like gooey, like squishy.
Yeah, it's and the thing is and what you don't. Well, I guess I'll save it for later. I was gonna say something about the system itself, but. Yeah, I mean, it's got a very, it's a very organic. It's supposed to be very organic-y and
yeah, it's very organic and it's essentially alive.
That's what I was gonna say, is that we find out later that the system's actually a full-on. It's not like electronic. It's a live thing, you know.
Right, and it plugs into you literally. And that's where the connection to the Matrix
basically by a umbilical cord type of deal that goes into the back of your spine. But what happens is while they're setting up to test out this new eXistenZ, some shady dude walks in, and he has to go through the checking in with Jude Law's character, and he checks him out and everything, and he asks him like. It's like, oh yeah, you don't need your what's the thing called, your your game pod, we'll provide everything for you. And the guy's like, oh yeah, it's an older one, but it still works and all that stuff. But he's a shady looking guy, like he's kind of he looks like he's not quite there for good stuff. So lo and behold, he sit down and he's watching them plug in and watching them start to play the game or start to download the game into these pods, and he pulls out a gun, but it's a weird looking gun, Steven. This gun is there's no good way to describe it other than it's the bone gun, or they call it the bone gun or the flesh gun. It's very much hard to describe. It almost looks like something out of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, well, we get a full-on breakdown of how it's constructed slightly later on, so we'll get to that point when we get to it. But yeah, it's an organic gun, and
it's the reason it could get through the metal, because it's made of all flesh and bone.
It's not made out of metal or anything synthetic.
Yeah. So he goes right for her name was Allegra.
Allegra,
and shoots her right in the shoulder, and knocks her back in her chair, and then Chris Eccleston pops up too, and he gets shot right through the chest. Yeah,
he gets capped a few times.
Yeah, and then the actual some people with guns just show up and just shoot the fuck out of the guy.
Yeah, they have ankle holsters.
Yeah, some people were ready.
I'm like, how did these people get in?
Yeah, I was gonna say these people were fucking ready. They should have been the security at the door.
Somebody fell asleep at the window here.
Yeah. But then they shoot that dude up, and then basically...
Yeah, they unload on him pretty good.
Yeah, basically Eccleston tells Jude Law's character to get her out of here, go take her somewhere safe. So
yeah, people are after her and whatnot. Don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
That usual type of deal. So they get away in a car. There's a scene change. They get away in the car, and she's still, bleeding and whatnot. And basically... they're driving away, and they're trying to find a place to go, and
there's a quick scene where she has him take the bullet out, and when they take the bullet out, it's not a bullet, it's a tooth.
Yeah, and then they pull out the clip of the gun, because I think he took the gun with him.
Yeah, they have the gun. Yeah,
Ted did. Jude Law's character Ted, he took it with him, and he pulls it out, and it's the clip is teeth.
It's a grill of teeth.
One of them has a filling in it.
Yeah.
And one of them has a filling in it. And so they're like, there's more to this When meets the eye. So they end up going to, I believe, a motel, if you will, or something like that, because they're trying to stay off the grid.
Yeah.
And Allegra Allegra needs to check on her game pod, but she needs to tap into it because the only copy of eXistenZ is in there, and it could have been damaged or it could have been corrupted.
Like when you're like downloading something and it says don't turn off your computer when it's downloading.
Yeah, don't turn off the
kind of
console,
like that. Basically, it was downloading the game into the other pods, and it got cut off in the middle of it. So she needs to know whether there's been corruption and damage to the core item. And so the only way she can really do that is by plugging in with somebody else. And
the problem is,
Jude Law's character does not have a bioport.
He does not have a bioport, and he gives the reason that he has a phobia against penetration through the flesh. Like
so, he doesn't he doesn't like butt games. He doesn't like things up his butt. So
I thought it was more like he just didn't like needles.
Oh, I thought it was like a gay reference.
But you know what's crazy? I mean, since it's Cronenberg, since he likes that sexual stuff, and they specifically use the word penetration.
Yes,
it's sexual.
I definitely think it was meant to be sexual.
Yeah, we're all adults here. It's sexual.
Yeah.
So yeah, specifically using the word penetration, I would say.
Either he might be a closeted gay, or he's or maybe he isn't gay, but he just doesn't like butt stuff.
I guess so.
But yeah.
Either way, he needs to get one put in.
Yeah, he has to get one put in. So that apparently
they decided to go to. You take it.
There's like a black market. Out there for these, because this gaming thing is like almost think Ready Player One, like where it's become a lifestyle. Everybody has it. Everybody's is somewhat involved in it. So there's this like black market way of getting a bioport. Kind of reminded me of like Minority Report when you had the guy that could like change your eyes out.
Yes.
Something kind of like that. So they go to this gas station. Now, this is one thing that, because I listened to some of the commentary. I didn't get to finish it because I was kind of doing it before this podcast. Was kind of rewatching it with the commentary from Cronenberg. And he talks about how one of the things in this movie is labels. If how like in video games, so you can identify things, you just label it like the gas station or like this, So you'll notice when they go to the motel, it's just, which we see that a lot. It just says motel over it. It doesn't have a name, any special name. They go to this gas station, it just says something gas station. Like nothing fancy. Then the guy who's the attendant, his name is Gas, played by Willem Dafoe. And so, Jennifer Jason Leigh just kind of nudges at him and says, look, I need a port, he just acts like it, he doesn't know what she's talking about. And then when he realizes who she is, he kind of worships her, he jumps down, kisses her feet, and then starts to say, hey, I can get you, we can do it, So now they're in this warehouse, this garage, and he's going through his, tool chest. And of course, looks all sanitary and everything. Yeah. And
it looked terrible.
Yeah, it looks terrible. And then he finally finds the equipment he's looking for. And this whole scene, this particular scenario, very much has some homoerotic kind of overtones with the fact that he's kind of Jude Law's kind of like bent over a chair. And he's got his, the area where they put the bioports in are very close to the butt area. It's the tramp stamp area.
Well, yeah, they're attached to the spine.
Yeah.
Which, when you mess around with the spine, things can go bad.
Sure.
Like you can paralyze someone.
Which they get
in a bioport.
Yeah, well, they give him an enema first, basically.
Well, he said that there's a built-in enema when the bioport gets injected onto your spine. First there's like a prep gun it's a stud finder. For those of you in carpentry, and basically a stud finder is like in the walls. There are there are only certain spots in a wall where you can put a screw or a nail, and that's where the studs are. And there's a little device called a stud finder, and it goes beep, 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 and then,
What are you talking about? I put shit up on the wall all the time without studs.
Okay. Sometimes they hold, depending on what you hold.
Yeah, they're just small
and
pictures.
They've also made things now where you don't need a stud that'll hold stuff up, but typically people use studs. Then there's that terrible dad joke where, like that you hold the stud finder up to yourself and you make
Jesus.
the beeping
What are you
sound.
talking
It's like, it looks like you found a
What
stud.
are you talking about? I've never used that one.
I use it all the time.
Man.
But basically, this one's a stud finder for your spine, where the right part is to put your bioport in. So basically, there's like an X marks the spot that gets put on your back.
Yeah.
And then comes the stud finder, and the difference in size between the stud finder gun and the bioport gun are like double in size. And just like the poor Jude Law character is kind of freaking out about it because
he doesn't like to be penetrated.
Yeah, and it looks painful as hell. Also, you come to find out that the Willem Dafoe character has only done this like 2 or 3 times, and he hasn't paralyzed anyone yet. That's what he says. And I was like, oh, good to know.
He's like, usually I get paid for this. So, which once again is another makes it feel even more sexual.
Sex worker or prostitute or something like that. But so he gets it put in, and this is when we get our first look at what a bioport looks like. Stephen, how would one describe what
a belly button for your lower back?
I was thinking more sexual or more interpersonal, but okay.
I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily a vagina. It's not really doesn't really look like a vagina.
No, but it does look like, we were talking sexual, penetration before. It does look like an anus.
Sure, yeah, it definitely could be an anus.
And it's treated that way in the movie. You know what I mean? It's treated in the way in the movie because we see parts in the movie where there's lubrication applied before a cable is plugged in. And typically that's done through, and when people are having like some type of, Stephen, how would you say it?
Prostate exam? Is that
prostate exam?
Like a butt exam?
More sexual.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anytime anything is inserted into the anal cavity, typically things are lubricated.
Yes.
For smooth
insertion.
Yes, smooth goings. So that just seems to be
where he's going. I agree with the anus.
And also that the whole vaginal thing as well is definitely kind of
it still can apply, definitely.
Either way, there is a hole being put in that creates a sensation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the problem with this port is they go to plug it. First of all, she wastes no time. The guy can't, Ted can't move his legs, and he can't really move at all.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, we'll just plug in right here, right now. So she plugs in to him, and she plugs in, and her pod gets fried. And she's blaming him. She's like, "Oh, you were nervous, and therefore you fried the pod." And he's like, "No, I wasn't. Yeah, I'm nervous, but not enough to fry the pod." And what happens is that Willem Dafoe's character put in a bad port on purpose, and he put it in on purpose because there's a bounty out for Allegra, and he wants to, basically turn her in, or not turn her in. He wants to kill her, then turn her in and get the money.
Yeah.
And she tries to convince him that, do you really think these people are going to pay you this money? Can you really trust them? And he's about to shoot her, basically. And what happens is Ted shoots him from behind with the bioport gun.
Yeah.
And kills him.
Yeah, right through the side of the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also in typical Cronenberg fashion, he's not afraid to show the bloodiness of certain things.
Nope. So
now we got to be on the run again because it's the second attempt on her life in the same evening. So we are on the run again, and this time she goes to someone who she believes she can trust. In Ian Holmes' character,
it's her mentor.
my mentor, and his name is Darcy Nader.
Ah.
And he's not Darcy Nader. That's the guy later on. What's his name? Oh, I think his name is Kiri Vinegar. Yeah, Vinegar. I thought they were saying vinegar the whole time, but it's Vinegar. Vinokur. Kiri Vinegar. And he runs like a ski shop, so they basically have to drive all the way there, and he and his associate are going to repair her biopod and give Ted a new bioport.
Yeah.
And they can plug into the game after
And this is
that.
where you get the whole picture of that these pods are organic. You know, that they're live
gruesome.
beings. You get a whole kind of dissection scene.
Very, very, talk about blood.
Yeah.
Blood and organs and stuff.
I mean, that's what it is. It's
Very
just
squishy.
it's just like it's like a live organ that's a game system apparently.
Yeah, and he's going through, and they're just like pulling out parts and like spraying water in there and cleaning things out and doing all kinds of stuff to her pod, and they replace his pod, which is a scene we don't get to see actually.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to see it, but I guess we don't. So yeah, so now they plug in, and they end up in this like virtual video game store, and this is where we meet Darcy Nader, who's a video game shop owner who provides them with micropods. There are these micropods that can be sold there, and these micropods, they don't so much plug into you as go inside of you entirely.
Yeah.
A little uncomfortable to watch, but that happens.
Hey, you know, typically the anus is used for things only going out of it. So, you know, if you put something small enough in there, it's just going to get sucked in.
Right.
So that's what happens.
It kind of gets sucked in by itself. Again, like these bioports have a mind of their own and just do whatever. But they of course, lubrication is once again applied, and here we go off running. It's almost like a Vaseline chapstick type lubrication. I don't know what the consistency is, but it worked. Anywho, these tiny biopods get put into them. But what we also learn in this scene is just kind of how the eXistenZ video game works. There are these NPCs. An NPC is just stands for non-playable characters who are just like part of video games.
Yeah.
They're the video game characters that you interact with. You know, they ask you questions or you ask them questions and they reply answers back and forth, whatever.
You gotta say the right thing to get them to respond.
Yeah,
the way
you gotta say the right thing to get them to respond the right way to
further the game.
Further the game on. This has been happening in video games for forever, basically.
Yeah.
And so that's who this Darcy Nader character is, so that happens in terms of the mini biopods, and then they start like having a sexual encounter.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the sexual encounter, Ted's trying to be rational and start asking like all kinds of questions and all kinds of this and that. And anywho, long and short of it is they're in the middle of this kind of sex scene, if you will, without actual sex. And then we cut to a different scene, different place, world entirely.
The transition is he's grabbing her breast.
It's harsh.
He's grabbing her breast, and then suddenly he has a dead frog lizard thing in his hand.
Yeah, which is it's terrible. That's like when you're having a great dream, not necessarily a sex dream, any type of dream. You could have won the lottery or whatever, and then you wake up to your real life and you're not and you're not a rich billionaire whatever person. And then like that's kind of what it is. But anywho, he's holding a frog in his hand and he's in a factory.
Yeah.
And this is where the film kind of gets a little weird. As if it wasn't
I was gonna say it's getting a little weird. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So he's in this factory, and apparently his job is to dissect the creatures and take a few of their organs out, and then wrap them up and move on. I mean, it's not really clear what necessarily is the a reasoning
No, but he's got, and then the dude working next to him his name is Yevgeny. Yeah, Yevgeny Nourish, I think is his name. And they have like this really kind of awkward back and forth conversation. And yeah, and then he sees Jennifer Jason Leigh, and he talks to her, and then it seems like she's like a...
Before he does that, the conversation leads to, where are you going to go to eat today?
Yes.
And he suggests just suggests to go to the Chinese restaurant.
In the woods.
In the forest, in the middle of the forest. Go to the Chinese restaurant. And he tells him, he's like, I suggest you get the special. You know,
that's where all the best restaurants are, in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
We all know this.
He says, make sure you order the special. No matter what, like, don't let them turn you away. Get the special. So then he goes looking for Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, and she's, doing her own kind of thing in the factory. And what's interesting here is she tries to play herself as one of the, routine characters in the game that she's not.
Yeah, because he says a bunch of stuff that she repeats the same question.
Yeah.
And I was like, is she now, a non-playable character too? Or is she just pretending to be?
Yeah.
And it feels like she's pretending to be, because when we get to this Chinese restaurant, they start talking like they were talking before.
Yeah.
So, I assume...
I think she's just messing with him, I guess.
Yeah, and anywho, so they order the special, but when he asks for the special, the whole place stops.
Yeah.
And kind of looks at him. And then the waiter says, that's only for, like, a special occasion. And he's like, oh, it's her birthday. And he's like, oh,
well, that's a special occasion, isn't it? Yeah.
Special for everybody. So the special comes, and it looks very unappetizing.
It doesn't look good, but for some reason he's compelled to eat it.
It's like, isn't it like, I don't even know what is on the plate. It's like bugs and stuff. It looks awful.
It's a gross looking thing. But he starts going at it, and suddenly you start to realize,
it's delicious,
apparently, yeah, he loves it. Everybody else left the table, by the way. Everybody else besides him and Jennifer Jason Leigh. So they're there, and he's just going at this thing. And suddenly you start to realize that it looks very reminiscent of the bone gun from where they came from reality that they thought they were in. Which, if you haven't picked up on it by now, they've never been in reality, from my eyes. Now, there's a scene we missed that I meant to bring up, but there's a scene when they're at the gas station, and she's like looking around, and she's like kicking the dirt, and she's touching things. What she's doing is she's I think reveling in the fact that everything looks so real for not being real. So in my and this was kind of revealed to me through the commentary too, that from the beginning the movie's we're already in the game. Even at the beginning.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I would say if you're watching the movie for a first time, like if you're first time watching or being introduced to this world, I don't think you can really tell.
No, I don't think you realize. It's one of them things on a second watch that you would pick up on, probably.
Yeah, it's one of those where a second viewing, once you understand the twist, then you can see, like, oh, how did I miss it before? Because, there's a telling sign, sign. It's kind of like when you watch Shutter Island for a second time, this Martin Scorsese film. Yeah. It kind of makes the second viewing more rewarding if you know the twist in that movie.
Yeah. You can pick up on all the subtle stuff.
You start picking up on things.
Well, one of the other things he decided he wanted to do filmmaking-wise was that in that scene when they're driving, he purposefully used rear projection in the car so that it would have this kind of unreal look to it. Because rear projection, you're just filming somebody filming the road as you drive, and it has this very like old schooly like fake look to it. So being in
I think rear projection looks terrible nowadays.
But it looks pretty decent in this, but it also doesn't look that real either. So it being that it's the game world.
Yeah, just going back to what you were saying, even while at that gas station, she also comes across like that little creature.
The little
thing.
creature, yeah.
That it's like a two-headed.
It's like a two-headed lizard of some kind,
lizard type thing. And for 1999 special effects, it looked okay.
He says that this is. They just, they did have a puppet they were going to maybe use, but they decided that the full CGI thing was the best. It looked the best. Apparently, this movie was a learning experience for Cronenberg because he hadn't really messed around with CGI very much in his movies at all.
No, that's kind of what makes him so unique.
Yeah,
especially all of his 80s and 70s body horror stuff.
Yeah,
is that it's all practical, like makeup effects and practical special effects and stuff like that, and that's what makes it look so gory because it looks so real. It doesn't look fake at all.
Yeah,
and that's why just jumping back into this scene, the bone gun looks so real because you see him start to put it together at the table, and it's like the one bone clicks into this one, the other bone clicks into that one, and then like at one point he pulls a bridge of teeth out of his mouth, and that's like that was the teeth that are in the clip itself.
Yeah,
and he inserts that into the gun, and like, oh, here's the bone gun, and he initially points it at Jennifer Jason Leigh at Allegra, and then he's like, no, I'm going to I'll shoot the waiter to try it out.
Yeah.
And he ends up shooting the waiter, and it causes a big hubbub in the place. And they've got to get out. They have to get out.
No, I mean everybody like is like watching him, and then he tells them that everything's all good. We just had a problem with the check.
Misunderstanding. Yeah.
And then everybody goes back to eating. So I mean, yeah.
So on their way out, I believe they run into Yevgeny again, and he's like working there as a chef, right? Or is that a later scene?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure.
Okay, and yeah, so I think that is, and then we have a whole like exposition scene of because that's the next scene. They're trying to leave through the back, and they run into him, and he's working there, and he claims to be, he's like the realist contact, and he shows them like that pond of where they're like growing all the different animals that they use to make like the parts for the pods and stuff, but they also use it to like make food too. And it's kind of like, and that's where we learn that the pods are, made of organic stuff, and that it's like biomechanical.
Yeah.
And then he tells them that they have to go back to that video game store. And then we get to the video game store, and then we learn that that the dude working there, Hugo. This other dude working there, his name is Hugo Carlaw, and he informs him that Nourish is actual double agent for Cortical Systematics, this is a big, as you can tell, this plot gets kind of crazy. And it's like, there's these two companies like trying to fight each other, and these two characters are kind of caught in the middle, and it's just like...
Well, she works for one of the companies.
Yeah, and then we see that that dude from earlier is like dead.
Yeah.
The other like non PC character is dead, and that it's crazy, and it's nuts. And then the actual contact was actually the waiter that Pykul actually killed. But yeah, this is kind of nuts.
Well, it starts at what you start to get this idea, if you hadn't picked up on the fact that if you think that the world before they plugged in was reality, how that the reality world is now blending into the video game world. So that's what you think when you watch it the first time.
Right.
Is that he's projecting his experiences from the real world into the game, and that people are, popping in and looking like other people in the game, and And so that.
And
yeah.
One thing we didn't even cover is that when they were at that restaurant, he pressed pause on the game.
Yeah.
And they came out of it.
Yeah.
And
well, it's an important scene in the sense. This whole scene reminded me kind of Inception.
I was actually just thinking about Inception.
Yeah, where in Inception, Marion Cotillard's character has been incepted and doesn't believe that her reality is real, and that she doesn't want she wants to go back. She only wants to live in that world.
Because she thinks it's the real world.
She thinks it's the real world, yeah.
And in a way, and so when he pushes pause on the game and they come out of it, and he's like, and both he's like, I'm having trouble distinguishing what's real and what's not. I'm having trouble distinguishing if this is the real world or if the world we were just in was the real world.
Yeah.
And that poses, I mean, this is a question.
Well, that's the question of the whole movie. Time. That's the
yeah. That's kind of the essential part of the movie. The core of the movie is like what's reality and what's not. That's that also philosophical connection that's within the Matrix as well.
Yeah.
And it all goes back. I mean, this is about to just quickly here. Philosophers and philosophy has been delving into this for forever. The idea of existence and what's real and what's not. Are the things that we are perceiving right now in our reality, are they in fact actually real, or are they just constructs of our own mind?
Yeah.
Or are they a construct of something else? This is something that's been through like Immanuel Kant, Rene Descartes, Hume. So many different philosophers have delved into this, just contemplating existence in and of itself. And as we've gone on and our technology has become more advanced over time, people keep asking those questions. And then we get all these kind of science fiction movies that take the philosophies and apply them to our modern times, a la The Matrix and eXistenZ. And it's like, who really knows what reality truly is? Because all we can perceive is what we see. And all we can do is kind of trust the fact that, reality persists past our perception. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know 100% that Steven is living a real life right now. All I can do is assume that he is.
Yeah.
Because I'm not witnessing it for myself. I'm not experiencing it for myself. So I have to assume that it is. And he doesn't know that for me. For anything, I could be a figment of his imagination. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like delving into that. That's kind of like a quick overall view of all that stuff that I learned in college while I was awake.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, and that's kind of an essential part of this movie. And keep that in mind because, like we said, it has a very Inception vibe where, like, a game within a game within a game. And then reality within a reality within a reality.
And it begs that question that, is not even just that larger philosophical question, but also that how far should we let technology intrude into our minds, because it will confuse us. It could damage our mental state, by being too intricate with getting too involved in it, because then you can lose a sense of reality.
And just look at the way the internet is now.
Yeah.
With social media and social media perception, and like, are people the same people they are on social media as they are in real life?
Yeah.
Catfishing. There's also that thing. And also, even just in video games themselves, virtual reality has become a thing nowadays, where you can, step inside a different world and whatnot. It's kind of crude compared to, like, the way science fiction has kind of presented it, but it's still a stepping stone into a virtual digital world that is not real. Or is it real? That's the question. And they kind of contemplate that within that scene, and basically they end up going back in, of course. They end up plugging back in, and this is where they have this is where they find like that a diseased pod.
Yeah.
And for some reason she is compelled to to plug into it.
Yeah.
and I don't know why it looks terrible. The thing's like all black and pretty much dead, and she's compelled to use her cord. That's what they're called, because they do look like umbilical cords.
Yeah,
they are like that fleshy, like umbilical cord type looking thing, and she plugs into it and she starts like freaking out, or she starts like basically like dying, if you will, because like she's probably like now exposed to whatever was causing that biopod to die. And then what Ted decides to do is decides to cut off the umbilical cord, the umbi cord, and what we get is like a spurt of blood just like gushing out of it. And I'm like, yeah, that was probably what was going to happen. You really shouldn't have done that. Perhaps you should have done something else. But so she's now like kind of still like bleeding out and dying, and he's got to get her out of there. And then Nourish walks in with a flamethrower, and just incinerates the diseased pod. And then basically, Geller and Pike will wake up back at the ski lodge. And then what happens is that Geller's pod is now diseased as well, because it's been corrupted because of the diseased pod within the game. But she believes that it's probably because of Pykule's bioport, and that Vinegar betrayed them.
Yeah.
And put in a bad bioport, an infected bioport, and he's like, infected? He starts to freak out. I probably would too. And he probably did that in an attempt to destroy eXistenZ. And she put this is important. She puts like a device in his bioport that she says is going to like clean it out or something.
Yes.
But it takes like a few hours to do it, and it's like this like pen thing that she inserts, and then kind of like a little like cap comes off, and like there's like a cap on it, and it's like a metal cap on the back of his spine. That's important. And then what happens is the place gets kind of like attacked.
Yeah, by the realist resistant fighters.
The realist attacked.
And
the realist resistance, and there's this one dude who tries to get him out of there, and he was also within the game too, and basically they get outside and it's pretty much pure chaos.
Yeah.
There's bullets flying, there's explosions, there's just crazy shit's happening. And in the middle of it, what's his name? Vinegar comes out, and of course the whole time he says that he was with he was a double agent for the cortical systematics. And he's like, come to our side. Come with me right now. You'll be safe, whatever. And then she kills him. But before she kills him, he says like, yeah, your game's not gone. It's in, I copied the whole thing. Don't worry about it. While I was fixing it up. So don't worry about it, because her game pod got destroyed. Yeah. The dude who popped in to save them, just shot the heck out of it. and then we gets kind of the bigger twist is after she kills Vinegar, Ted actually came up with the idea of perhaps this reality here isn't real, but then he reverses it here and saying, what if this is real and you just killed somebody?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was a quick turn of character within the last 5 minutes or so.
Well, once again, I mean, he's saying he can't differentiate between the two things. He just doesn't know.
Yeah, between eXistenZ and this quote unquote real world, and I put that in quotes because in a second you'll find out why.
What also brings up the idea that some people have this belief that the impulses that video games provide can make people actually do them in real life. People say that violent video games cause violent behavior.
That is something that people say.
Yeah, and I don't know that I believe that, but
I don't really believe it. But
the fact that you have that impulse, especially within this game that's very realistic and that you're actually acting out things that seem very real, the fact that you're willing to do that in that game says a lot about you, and what you might do in real life, which I think kind of plays into the end of the movie. But you know.
Yes, yeah. So anywho, we find out that Ted is also that Ted is a realist agent that was sent to kill her, and then we also learn that Allegra knew this ever since that scene in the Chinese restaurant.
It kind of gets kind of ridiculous. Like
yeah, it's kind of getting a little ridiculous here. Yeah, and then basically he points a gun at her, and then she has this detonator in her hand. She pushes it, and then the thing that she inserted in his bioport explodes, and he's dead.
To me, I think that was in an intentional, almost like rousing kind of twisty ending on purpose. Yeah, the game is trying to tell a story in a certain way, and it goes down this very contrived path to the end. That you're like, that's kind of ridiculous, but you know, okay.
It all becomes relatively clear in a second.
Sure.
In a second. So she starts like freaking out, not freaking out, but she's like celebrating. She's like, oh, I won the game. And in this moment, I'm like, is it going to end right here? Is it going to end with like, this wasn't really a game this whole time. She actually just like, you know, killed a couple of people, and this whole thing is just like some wild, crazy adventure. No, that's not true. Because the scene changes, and everybody who was involved in this whole plot so far throughout this whole movie is all sitting in chairs with like virtual reality type things on their heads.
Yeah.
And they're all like playing this game. And yeah, they all wake up, and they're all sitting in that abandoned small church from the beginning of the movie, and they're all sitting on like these chairs, and this woman is just sitting there. He's like, "Welcome back, everyone," and then they all start talking about like, "Oh yeah, you were great in the game.
Yeah,
you two were really great. You know, you just give him a hand, people." And everybody starts clapping and stuff. And then then people were like, "Oh, how long have we been gone for?" And she's like, "Oh, 20 minutes."
And this is where it very much confirms that since the beginning of the movie, the game had already started.
Yeah, this is where everything becomes clear that this whole thing was not real this whole time. Even from the beginning of the movie up until now, was not real.
Yeah,
and yeah, so they're all like talking about the game and whatnot, and it was all part of a virtual reality that called, and the game is not called eXistenZ, it's called eXistenZ.
Yeah.
Which I probably, if I'm led to be, is transcendentalism.
Like transcendence.
Yeah, like a transcendence. Transcendentalism it's a form of philosophy, school of philosophy that it started actually up my area, and it was a reaction to rationalism. It's a whole big thing, but look up transcendentalism, because I don't want to make this a whole big philosophy lesson, but that's probably what that's based on. And what happens is he talks about that, and then he and his assistant start talking about the whole thing, and he's like, something's kind of weird, because there was a very anti-gaming message being pushed in that reality.
Yeah.
Or in that game, within that world. And it must have been someone in there really heavily mentally pushing that. We better watch out.
Yeah.
And then someone was manipulating the game in there. And what happens is Ted and Allegra Geller, Ted and Allegra, they approach and decide to talk to him and his assistant, and they basically they're realist, and they start shooting people. They start shooting him and his assistant, and basically the movie ends with them pointing two guns at the guy who played the Chinese waiter in the movie that we just watched, and he pleads for his life, and then he asks if they're still in the game, and no one answers. They don't answer, and cut to black, and that's eXistenZ. are we still in a game or are we not in a game? And that's probably Cronenberg saying, is the reality that we are living in, that we think is real, is it actually real?
Yeah.
And that poses a pretty big question.
One thing I thought about when it came to things in our real world that might have influenced some of this, for some reason this ending really made me think about the Unabomber. The fact that
How so?
the fact that he's against technology.
Okay.
The furthering of technology and how he feels. And that's kind of how these characters that are very much against this game system come off to me is almost like a cult of that kind of thinking, that that the technology that is being presented in this video game is harmful to the future of human existence, and that it has to be destroyed at all costs. So
I mean that's an interesting line of dialogue to open to, but it also, I would even break it down or kind of look at it in a different way. It's, there are, people who are against change and against anything new that they think they believe has a negative effect on society because they're so stuck in tradition or realism, if you will, that the movie presents, and they're so afraid to move forward with any of these social changes or technological changes or whatever changes that are occurring, that they've convinced themselves that they're so negative that sometimes and oftentimes they tend to approach it in violent ways.
Sure.
And that kind of delves into our whole political turmoil society that we live in now, that's basically descended into chaos. And it kind of, you can kind of take the themes in this film, kind of apply it to that, and it kind of still works.
Yeah, I mean, and also the other way with, very similar to something like Jurassic Park, where it's a morality tale about how, science. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, should you do something, not just that can you do something, and
that's literally something that they brought up in the movie.
Yeah,
like they're having like that board scene where, or Hammond thinks that the paleontologist and Laura Dern's character, that Sam Neill and Laura Dern's character, we're going to side with him, and they really don't.
Yeah.
And they really don't. And they're like, and even Jeff Goldblum's character is like, you never really thought of like if you should do it. I don't think that's specifically in that scene, but it's in that movie.
Yeah.
It's in Jurassic Park. And you're right. It's also that's been a theme that's gone through several different movies over generations, where people have pushed technology and played God, if you will.
Yeah.
Frankenstein. We're in October.
Frankenstein.
People are rewatching Frankenstein.
Ex Machina.
Frankenstein's monster.
Ex Machina.
Yeah, and it's like, should you really push that technology? Like you said, you just said with Ex Machina, pushing robotics to the point where you can't you can't differentiate whether they're human or robotic or not. That goes back to something like Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? All those kinds of stuff. Like, are they really human? Are they not human? What makes humans? Can you replicate that within robotics or within other things? It's a lot of questions, and a lot of that is pushing the science forward. And then there are morality issues, like you said. Should we be doing that?
Yeah.
Can it be dangerous?
It's almost, and I'm not saying that there ain't women out there doing this kind of stuff, but it seems like a lot of times when it comes to like, talking about like creating AI or, it's like men feel the need that they need to be able to create life too. So, because women can do it, women can have something born out of them. We can already create life, but for some reason we feel the need to try to do it without natural, ways.
I mean, one of the thematic discussions about Frankenstein is that it is the male ego has not convinced itself. The male ego has pushed itself to the point where it's so jealous that women can create life and that men can't, that Dr. Frankenstein literally created life to make up for that on his own, and it had dire tragic consequences because of it, because in a way it it was perhaps unreasonable for him to do it. Like, it was morally, corrupt for him to do it. And you've read Dr. Frankenstein, if you've seen the various Frankenstein movies, that creates you try to create something that you probably shouldn't create.
But
it's the same way with technology now. Like, how far are we going to push the technology?
When are we going to be happy?
To what end?
When are we going to be happy? When are we going
to be happy? The more technology, the better. That's what I say.
I don't, but unless it's in the pursuit of medicine, to me, I'm not. I don't think that we need to continue to make our lives more and more convenient and more easier for everything.
Is there a level that you would be at where, like, this is too much?
Well, if you've seen the movie WALL-E, that's where we all got fat and lazy and we're living in a spaceship above.
Very true.
I think technology should be complementary, not necessarily the only thing. I think there's a lot of things in reality, even in our society today, that I find that are useless, that we just don't really need. Like this.
Go on.
For instance, as much as I love Amazon, I really don't need an Alexa. I don't need to speak out loud to have some computer fucking do something that I can do with my own hands. I can do my searches on my own. I don't need somebody else to do it for me. And, of course, I got fucking 2 of these things for my wedding. So now I have them. But, just things like that. I think that, there's certain parts of society where, like I said, medicine, things, that's the stuff that we should be pushing to, cure cancer, things like that. I think that that's important to cure diseases, and that's where our fucking... But we spend so much money on fucking weapons and
stuff like that.
And bad things.
I think that's more like bio stuff. Like, when I think of tech, I think more like you were saying.
Well,
like,
all the distractions of our everyday,
like
our distractions of everyday life, all the new tablets and the new phones, and like we continue to come out with like new toys all the time that we don't need.
Not only that, there is. Talk about more morality being thrown out the window. How many times are they going to come out with a new technological, advancement when it comes to a tablet or a cell phone, where it's only going to be like ever so slightly better than the previous one?
Yeah.
Just enough to when you can market it to people to get them to buy it.
Yeah.
Because there's not huge huge advances within cell phones over the last couple of years. Granted, if you're going back, 10 years, there's going to be a difference between a phone that came out now that came out 10 years ago.
Sure.
That's an increment difference, but like from 1 year to the next now, they're not changing too much.
But the thing is what companies have done is they've basically...
They've convinced people that they have...
Well, they've convinced people with marketing that they have to have something, but also... the way they've built their the technology, you're almost having to update based off of software. The software gets better, so then now your hardware has to change because they don't match up anymore. So you have to buy the new thing.
That happens all the time. Yeah. We've all heard about the stories where certain tech have built-in fail dates.
Oh yeah,
only certain amount of years, and then they'll automatically fall apart.
They'll start falling apart, and then they'll make you have to buy something new.
They'll make you have to buy a new one. Yeah. I'm big into tech from a fascinating standpoint, but I don't know the ins and outs of all the technical jargon, all that stuff. I'm fascinated by the advancements in technology and how things are changing Things are changing all the time now, and it's impossible to keep up with. For those of you at home who are, literally listening on your cell phones or your computers or all that kind of stuff, that device is probably going to be quote-unquote out of date within a year or two. For example, for me, I think if something is 5 years old, it's considered ancient in the tech world right now.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a 5-year-old TV, that's ancient now. I just upgraded from a TV that came out in 2016 to a TV that came out in 2020, and the marketing difference, the difference between the two is like night and day, like light years. And I'm like, in 4 years they went from here to here. That's crazy how things are moving.
We went from a society that built things to last,
right,
to a society that builds things to make money.
Yeah, so they're only like temporarily useful. You know what I mean?
I mean, even our cars are made out of paper now.
Yeah, that's true.
Compared to when they used to be made out of steel frames.
Well, and that goes to like...
That's also about the gas mileage and,
Yeah, well, also like the manufacturing,
materials.
Techniques and material and cheaper and all that kind of stuff. What's interesting, they make things cheaper now, but the prices don't seem to go down.
Wow.
Prices
it's like we have a fucking government that just keeps taking more and more from us. They got to pay them salaries. When Steven and I first met each other, we bonded over how much we hated the eco cases
for Blu-rays and stuff.
God damn.
Because like they never really lowered the price of the Blu-rays, but like they took out plastic from the packaging, so it's like, so they're saving money, and we're not saving money, but they're making more money off of us, and the packaging and the product is inferior.
Yeah.
So it's like,
thanks.
We're getting screwed here.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's kind of capitalism in a nutshell. It's kind of like making as much money as you can and screwing over the consumer, if you will.
Seems to be the case nowadays.
We can get into capitalism in many other movies.
Yeah.
But
I think we should go ahead and get off our tangent.
Yeah, let's get off our tangent now before we start talking about Philosophy 101 from my college days.
But we're in this point where that was the end of eXistenZ talk. We hope you enjoyed that. Now it's Andrew's turn to pitch the next episode.
Yes.
And what do you got? What do you got to throw at me?
We are in, of course, October. It is early October now, so we've got some time to do a couple of more horror-centric films. And eXistenZ is horrific in the sense that what it's warning us against.
Yeah.
And
thematically, it's kind of horrific.
Thematically horrific. Yeah. And also horrific in, like, I mean, some of the visuals.
Oh,
if you're not in it when it comes to, like, not even body horror, just, like, gooey-looking stuff, fleshy-looking stuff, like the sound stuff. That stuff kind of creeps you out. Then, you'll be, like, creeped out by the movie. But I want to go with something that it's a film that we both love, and I don't think we've talked about it yet. But if we talked about it, please tell me.
Okay.
Because I don't remember. I remember things, but I don't remember important things. If that makes any sense. I want to talk about Charles Laughton's Night of the Hunter.
No, we haven't. We haven't done an episode on it yet.
Good. I think it's appropriate now because it is a horror movie. Two. We hinted at it when we did our episode about first movies from filmmakers.
Yeah.
We made the oh so hilarious joke that it is the first and last film directed by the actor Charles Laughton.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good one because I once had a class that was called monsters in film.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And the first question they asked us were, who are like the two like scariest monsters? And I had Max Cady from Cape Fear.
Yeah.
And I had Night of the Hunter.
Oh, Robert
Mitchum's character from Night of the Hunter.
Yeah.
And just because they're not frightening in the sense that, they're not Dracula, Frankenstein, anything like that, but they're just horrifically terrible people. You know what I mean? Like, those are the stories that scare me the most personally, are movies that deal with, like, regular people doing terrible things.
Yeah.
Like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, I find to be more frightening than, like, Halloween or Friday the 13th, because you have that that separation of like reality versus like unreality, because they mythified the Mike Myers and Jason Voorhees characters to the point where they're supernatural beings. You know what I mean? So there's a distance there. But when it comes to like somebody who's just a terrible person, terrible people exist in real life all the time.
Yeah.
We see it on the news every night. So yeah, Night of the Hunter.
Okay.
It gives us the chance to talk about that movie, because it's a movie that I think also that you don't really discover if you're not like in a cinephile circle. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's how I discovered it.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a, I would say, an obscure pick. And maybe us talking about it will get people interested. So yeah, that will be our next episode, Night of the Hunter, and then after that, we'll see what I'll come up with. I don't know. We got one more horror movie I think we can throw in.
No pressure.
No pressure. I know. What kind of horror movie should I pick? I don't know. More modern, something even older. I don't know. But we'll find out next week or next time. That's it for the episode. Where can we find you, Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Capzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can find me on Instagram at Cinema Discovery Project, and also on Letterboxd at Cinema Discovery. You can find the audio for this podcast on Podbean and Apple Podcasts. Thank you for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.